I remembered to check my mic before. Sorry, I'm at my standing desk, so like this camera is gonna be all over the place. My little, my weird AI camera. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, I'm faster than you. That's right. Anyway, we're gonna we're gonna get some work done on some Legend of Redneck as soon as I can. There we go. Give me a second here. Get fully set up. All right. I'm just gonna ink some stuff. These are some pretty pretty crazy panels. There's a lot of dark stuff going on. But I figured we could do this today in anticipation of the second act of The Legend of Redneck starting tonight. I believe it's at 7:30. I think that's when the new episode drops. Can't quite remember. But, you know, if you're on YouTube, you'll get the notification, as always. Get all set up here. All right. So I'm not going to give y'all any context for what's going on in these panels. You're certainly welcome to guess, right? But kind of figured this would just be a nice way to preview what's coming up. Give you all a little trailer, I guess, of sorts. A behind the scenes, a BTS. I don't know how many of y'all enjoy a good BTS. But I figured that's what we could do. And if you're working on something, hey, you get to hang out. Feel free to ask any questions you may have in regards to comics making process. I'm certainly happy to answer them. You know, the questions I can't answer, there's always going to be, you know, there's going to be questions I might be asking you. I might be like, why don't you tell me how do comics work for these like younger generations, right? Like, what are they reading? Do they read stuff like this? I feel like I don't know. I feel like I write stuff that's so odd sometimes that I don't think it's made for anybody other than myself. But you know, a lot of people do seem to like the stuff I make, so I'm not gonna complain too much. Hope y'all have had an excellent Easter break, spring break, whatever you want to call it. For myself, me, and my family, we did a bunch of things. I went with my sister and brother-in-law, and we went to Nordstrom Rack. And I bought 2 pairs of shoes. Did I need both pairs of shoes? That's debatable. But they were nice shoes. I liked them. And allegedly I got a pretty good deal on them. I don't know. Like, you go to the Nordstrom Rack and, like, particularly the shoes, the way, like, they organize the shoes is just complete chaos. It's just like, it's almost like a game show where you're supposed to, like, guess. Is this shoe, like, the right, does it actually go with the size on the shelf? Some weird variant of The Price is Right. Anyway. Found some good shoes. Found like a bunch of shorts because I'm getting ready for summer in Louisiana because it's going to be hot. I can already tell it's going to be a hot summer. I was discussing my, I don't know, how does that work? Like your cousin's husband? Is that like cousin-in-law? I was discussing gardening with my cousin-in-law because he has a nice little garden in his backyard. And he was talking about how his strawberry plants were starting to already get burnt up by the sun, and it's only March. So I don't, is that climate destabilization, solar maximum? I don't know. But anyway, he put a UV filter up on his garden, which is, I mean, it's just literally like a screen, like a kind of a plastic screen that you put some poles up, and then you drape it over the garden, so it's still able to get sun, but it's not getting like an intense amount of sun. It's getting enough sun that it can, those plants can grow. Because this is only spring, right? Like we just entered April. And April gets warm in Louisiana, but it feels a little early for like your strawberries burning up. Maybe that's just me. I'm gonna improv a couple things here. See, like, I don't, this lip. There we go. Something like that. Don't really draw teeth that often. I mean, not really. I'm going to do something real quick. So, hey, Jess. Jess says, I've heard Louisiana is like living in a. Oh, there's a little. The icon's in the way. What S? I wonder what that says with that annoying icon in the way of what you're trying to say. I've heard Louisiana is like living in a blank in the pits of hell hot. A sack, maybe? I'm sorry, Jess, I can't read the full thing because the little like emoji thing is in the way of the chat. I don't know how to fix that. I'm annoyed. Yeah, it's hot. To answer your question, yeah, it's super warm. In the summer, it is like it's actually like generally. I don't know. This is debatable. Some people say differently, but I think it's actually pretty comfortable 3/4 of the year. But those 3 months, like between, I don't know, oh, sauna. Jess was saying sauna and I couldn't read it. Between, like, I don't know, May sometimes is comfortable too. It's comfortable ish. It starts to heat up around May, but the worst of it really starts in July. Like June, July is when it really starts to get bad. That's when it's like 100% humidity and like, oh, the camera for Edward. All right. That's when it gets like 100% humidity and like, temperatures start to get up in the hundreds. And that's pretty miserable. Like, it's not fun. So, like, I don't ever look forward to that part. A lot of people just, especially a lot of retired people or, like, wealthier people, they just, like, leave the state. Like, they just abandon the state for those months. They're just like, we're gone. We're going to go to Colorado or North Carolina or something. And I usually just deal with it. I don't get as warm as I used to when I was younger. And I think part of that was like my time in Portland sort of had an impact on that. Because in Portland, like, okay, this is something I got used to living in the South, which is that in the South, most everybody has like central air conditioning, right? It really surprised me. It was really weird to me when I moved to Portland, Oregon, and like nobody had air conditioning. I was like, what do you do in the summer? Like, I don't understand. Do you just burn up? And then what I discovered is that most months during the summer, it's actually really nice and it's not very hot, right? It's very comfortable, and all you need is like a fan to kind of move some air around. And like it's not super humid, it's just kind of dry throughout the year. Or not throughout the year, through the summer. It's definitely not dry throughout the entire year in Portland. It's raining most of the year. Anyway, so for those, in Portland, it was like really 2 weeks towards the end of August where it got pretty uncomfortable. But otherwise, it was like pretty nice. Like you never really felt that warm in the house. It was not that bad. But anyway, not so much in the South, right? It kind of threw me for a loop. Like I was just like, I don't understand how this is supposed to work. And it turns out it works. Like you get like a window unit if it gets particularly bad. Or they have like these units that are like they're on wheels. You just kind of like can roll them around the house, and you find a window, and there's like a hose on one part, and the hose is like the exhaust for the air conditioning unit, and you stick it out the window. It's kind of a ridiculous device, but it comes in handy when you get a particularly hot month in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, like in the South, like or in Louisiana, I should say. I mean, if you have a window unit, that thing's gonna be on all day long, and it's not gonna stop. You pretty much need like central air. It's untenable otherwise. So anyway, getting ready for that. Bought some shorts at the Nordstrom rack. Bought a pair of pants. That was a very nice color that I liked. And two shirts. And spent more money than I thought I was going to spend because I thought I was getting a deal. I was, but like, turns out if you still buy a bunch of stuff, you're going to spend a lot of money. Funny how that works. But I needed the clothes. Because, like, since, oh yeah, Jess is talking about the portable air conditioning unit I was describing. I was like, I didn't know they made those. Yeah, I didn't either. It was like one of those things where when I discovered, I was like, I mean, I get it. It makes sense. It's just like, I don't know, like living in Louisiana, that's not something that comes up because everybody just has central air. But the Nordstrom rack. Oh, right. So what I was saying is like I also had to get a bunch of stuff out of my closet because I still am finding like there are pairs of pants that don't fit me any longer cuz like since I started up Tai Chi and like changed my diet a bit in the last year, like I went down several pant sizes like and I'm one of those people who has like a weird nebulous pant size. Like yes, I was come on. This camera, I swear. I have this weird nebulous pant size where sometimes it's 32, sometimes it's 34, sometimes it's 33. And it just kind of depends on who the maker of the pants are. So I was having a little bit of difficulty with that at the Nordstrom rack. because there was like, oh, this 33 fits me fine. This other 33 doesn't fit me at all. This 34 fits me fine. This other 34 is like way too loose. Like, well, what? How am I supposed to hit this target? And don't even get me started with like European sizes. Like, I've had to do that before in the past. I'm like, what? But yeah, went with my sister and brother-in-law. My sister wasn't looking for any clothes at all. She ended up buying a blanket just because she wanted to get a blanket for her dog, I think. But Jess says, I think that's just pants for everyone. I think you're right. That's just pants. Pants are complicated. That's part of the reason why, like, for a second I was gonna make Trailer Park Warlock T-shirts, and then I was like, yeah, but you don't just like make one size, right? You have to have different sizes, and like they're not gonna fit everybody, and so you're always inevitably gonna have like leftovers, and so that's why I ended up like settling on doing socks. Even though with the socks, I still had to do, or I felt like I needed to do multiple sizes. Which what I ended up doing is like I bought the medium size as the majority order, and then had like a smaller order of like small. Jess says it really makes no sense with men's pants though because it's actual measurement. It's actual measurements, right? Theoretically, yeah, it is actual measurements. Um, you would think, but I feel like it's a kind of like esotericism because I remember as a kid going to the I hated clothes shopping with my mom because like my mom was wanted to make sure 100% that like whatever we bought was going to fit me. So like I would try on a pair of pants and then she'd like look it over and just be like, "I don't know, you should try a different size. You should try like 3 different sizes and see how that like fits you." And then like I don't know if this is really how it happened, but this is how it felt as a kid. Like I felt like I took the pants off and then like, you know, left the fitting room and then my mom was like, "No, you got to try them on again. I don't know. I don't trust, you know." It drove me crazy. Like now that I'm older and like actually doing clothes shopping for myself, right? Um I do clothes shopping so fast now. And sometimes it works out fine and then every once in a while I end up in a situation where it's like, "Oh, this didn't quite fit me as well." Jess says women's pants are random numbers. Uh, they're not measurements of anything. Oh God. Maybe this might make more sense about the way my mom like would shop for clothes. Well, and then it's like, and then you have to like do this calculus of like, okay, well it's cotton, so it'll shrink, and so you got to like make this weird guesstimate of like, well, okay, how much is it gonna shrink when I, put it in the dryer? It's amazing that clothes fit us at all. It's truly a miracle. But now, I mean, at this point, like, it took a couple of years, but basically by the time I was like, I don't know, I mean, by the point I was living on my own, I just like, well, first of all, I didn't change my wardrobe for about, probably about 7 years. And then like, there was a point where I actually started enjoying like clothes shopping. which that probably didn't happen until around 30. But around 30, I actually started enjoying like looking for clothes for myself because I could go at my own, like I knew what my pace was and could go at that pace, and then like I would get the clothes I want that look interesting to me, get like generally I knew my size, right? But like every once in a while I was like if I'm not sure, I'll get an alternative size just to see. That's usually the issue with pants. With shirts I don't have that issue so much. But with pants and shorts it's like just throw away at the dartboard, see what happens. But I'll do that. Try it on. Look in the mirror. Do I like the way it looks? Do I not like the way it looks? All right, toss this, keep that, and then buy my clothes and walk out of the store and never think about it again. But God, I think for a while I had like this lingering uh lingering kid trauma about like spending what felt like an entire day in the store trying on clothes, and so like that kept me from enjoying that process for a little bit, but I got over it. Nowadays I'm you know what I'm looking for, know what I'm doing, and find it, buy it, go. But I get it. It's hard to like. I don't know. Sometimes it is hard to like be like, does this actually look good on me? But it's also kind of fun. I don't know. Maybe that's the character designer in me, because like nowadays I'm just kind of thinking about, okay, do these colors go well? Like, does this the thing I haven't fully learned yet is like fits, like how pants fit and stuff. Like I've gone most of my life being pretty casual in the stuff that I wear. It's only recently that I've been like, oh, it's kind of nice to have something a little more dressy, formal, whatever you want to call it. Although I don't know, in Louisiana, like nobody dresses that particularly swanky. Like the most swanky thing you wear is like for that guys wear generally are like polos. Like guys love polos down here. Jess says, I hate shopping all day. Don't know how these other ladies do it. I have like an hour, maybe two max of clothes shopping in me. Then I'm over it. Yeah, nah, that's for me. It's like, it's usually like 30 minutes. That's about the extent of it for me. And I remember there was one time I did go with my mom when I was much older. When I was like in my 30s, and she wanted to like for my birthday. She was like, "Oh, I'll buy your clothes," and I was like, "Okay." And then I just like got all my stuff, and she's like, "What? What? You didn't take long enough to get those clothes." I'm like, "I did, I did. You just, you just always overdo it." And and like I get where the fun, like I was saying, I get where the fun can be in clothes shopping. But you have to really be in a certain mindset for it. Like, you really have to be willing to just commit to like we're going on a quest to find the perfect fit for me. And one of these days I might even be so bold as to like get a tailored suit or something. Although I've heard that that's quite an investment, but be kind of nice. I have had a vest that was tailored for me once. Granted, that was like I had friends who were getting married, and so the wife in the couple she wanted to design the vest. I mean, she designed all of the garments for both the bridal party and the groom party, and like did a really great job too. But I had to take my own measurements and all that stuff, and it worked out fine. So I have a vest. It's hard to find like opportunities to wear it though. You know, I'm not gonna show up to board gaming group like dressed to the nines. We're ready to play. I was trying to think of like a. We're ready to play Splendor. We're ready to play Dominion. And I'm like dressed like I'm going to a wedding or a funeral. Maybe that is the right way to dress when going to board games, though. Dress like you're going to a funeral, really intimidate the other players. Jess says, my sister takes all day. She's indecisive. Yeah, that's a big part of it, too. I'm just not an indecisive person in that way. I'm indecisive about other things in life. Although I'm getting less indecisive as I get older, I think because I'm just like in this state of, you know what, I can only be alive for so long. I'm gonna spend a lot less of that time just like being in analysis paralysis. Like I used to spend so much time in my like evening thinking about what am I gonna eat for dinner, and then now I'm just like, you know what, it's gonna be a potato, and then I'm gonna move on. Or whatever, like it's gonna be a salad and then like some chicken or chicken and rice or chicken and more chicken. I haven't played Jess says I haven't played Dominion in forever. I love that game. Yeah, I enjoy Dominion a lot too. It's been a while since I played that one. That one actually is not that popular at my board gaming group. They're more into they're not as much into the deck building type games. They're more into like the sort of complicated resource building civilization type games, or like what is okay. We've been playing a lot of new games recently, so I've had what are they called, like write and roll games. The write and roll games are fine. I don't mind them. They're a little, I don't know, like there are other games I would rather play I'd rather be playing Splendor than a lot of those games. Jess says just enough strategy to be interesting, not enough to hurt my brain. Yeah, I agree. It's also the thing that I do like about the way Dominion is designed is you can have a lot of different, like every game is kind of different depending on what you end up with for your like deck building pool, which I like that aspect of the game a lot. And I think that kind of lends to its popularity. A perennial board game I really like to play is Ticket to Ride. That's a good one. And there's like a million variants of Ticket to Ride too, and they're all pretty interesting and fun in their own ways. And it's a fairly simple game to pick up. It's like Ticket to Ride is like if somebody designed Monopoly to be fun, kind of. That's my best description of Ticket to Ride. But probably my favorite. Okay, I have two that are like the real perennials, which is Azul. Azul's a really great game, and everybody I've ever introduced Azul to, like suddenly they're like really into it. I think part of the reason is that Azul is just like a nice looking game because it's like a tile. You use tiles, and they're these very kind of well designed, pretty looking tiles. And like there's this thing where every time I've had to explain it to people, they're confused for like the first 30 minutes, and then once they start playing the game, they go, "Oh, I see how this game works." And then they like really really get into it. Jess says, "I haven't hung out with my board gamer friends in years. I'm out of the board game loop." Yeah, I've only been in the board game loop probably for, I think I'm at best like 6 months, maybe a year. The thing about the board game loop is there's like way too many board games. There's like a million of them. And and I'm somebody who tends to be like I'll find like five really good ones and kind of cycle through those, but like my friends in the board game group, they're the kind of people who like they collect. Like they collect. So like they all almost all of them have like upwards of a couple of hundred board games each. And so they do have their favorites, but they're kind of like they'll have their favorites during a quarter, and then a new game will come out, and then if it's like a really good one that they enjoy, they'll really get into it. Like there was one I got into recently that I really enjoyed called I always get the name wrong. It's called Ancient Knowledge. And it's kind of a I don't know how to explain. It's kind of a complicated game, but once you learn it, it's really cool and fun, but it's weirdly paced. It's kind of on the longish side, and if you're not somebody who like likes those kind of games where you're largely just maintaining your own board and like, playing for long-term points, there's a little bit of like interaction with other people in the game, but like generally I wish I knew how to better explain. My favorite thing about okay, so I'll explain it as this. It's called Ancient Knowledge because like all of the set pieces of it are like ancient artifacts and like sites around the world. Which that part's really cool because it's like you get to look at the illustrations. They have the names for all the sites and stuff. So like if you're really into archaeology or like or ancient aliens, it's actually kind of interesting because that game most everything in that game is really grounded. But then they have one card they're like Atlantis, and I don't know if they just did that just to like for the hell of it or what, but like just to kind of throw everybody off. Like, well, how about we just throw in Atlantis? Anyway, the only issue with ancient knowledge is you have to be willing to like, sit down for an hour and a half game. If you're not into that, you won't like that game at all. There are a couple of games like that I've played in that group that they enjoy, and I enjoy them too. But like, I have to be ready. Like I have to be in the mindset for it. And like, it's a commitment, right? And then there are those other games that I just totally avoid, which are like the 4 hour games or the like, there goes my day kind of game. I try and avoid those as best as I can. I like my ideal board game is between 30 minutes and 45 minutes. Is strategic but simple to explain and has like enough complexity in it that it's kind of difficult to master. So going back to what I was talking about earlier with Azul and Splendor, both of those games are like that, and that's why I enjoy them a lot because there's a lot of variety to them. Well, I should say there's a lot of variety to Splendor. I don't Azul. There's a certain amount of variety too, but like that's a game that I feel like you can. It's good to play like 2 or 3 times and then like switch over to some other game. Splendor, I could play just anytime, anywhere. I'm ready. I like the game a lot. I keep describing that game to people as it's a lot like it's like a resource management game that's a little bit like poker, I guess. Yeah, that's all I got. I don't know how to explain that game, but I like it a lot. And then I want to be into co-op games, but I've yet to play one where I was like really into it. Like I really want to like the Lovecraft co-op type games, but they're always like way too long and way too like um number crunchy and just like overly complex. But those games should be like way better than they are. Like Arkham Horror's one where like I really want to like Arkham Horror, but it's just like way too long. Because I've never played a session of that game where it didn't go for like 4 to 6 hours, and I'm just like I want to do something else with my day. What are some other good board games? Trying to remember what I played recently. Oh, Cascadia, that's a really good one. That one is pretty simple to explain, although there's some complexities to the scoring that I think can throw players off a bit. But it's a fun like tile like tableau building kind of game with tiles. Almost done with that panel. I like King Domino a lot. That's a good one. Well, that's another one that's like kind of simple to explain, but I don't know. There's not like that much depth to it, but it's fun and quick, and everybody enjoys it. I'm just like going through board games I've played recently that I like. Okay, one of the longer ones that I have played that is actually pretty good is there's a Dune inspired board game, and I think that's part of the reason why I like it because I like Dune. Um, I think it's called Dune Imperium. I can't quite remember what it's called. Anyway, it's pretty good. It's a little overcomplicated, but once you get an idea of how the mechanics work, it's really fun. But it is one of those games where they're like, let's do Risk with deck building, with, resource management. Which I feel like a lot of the newer games recently have been kind of going in that direction, where it's like, we're just going to slam like 3 different board games into one, and then just like try and make that work. I played a World of Warcraft board game recently. That was pretty fun. It was a co-op game. It was on the shorter side. I don't remember what that game was called though. It was like Heroes of Azeroth, or I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just making it up. Um, I don't even play Warcraft, and I was like, my friends had started the game before I had arrived there, but I'd kind of like set it up in such a way that I could just jump in. And they didn't tell me what game we were playing, and I was just like looking at the board. I was like, wait a minute, this looks like Warcraft. And then it turns out it was Warcraft. I wish I could remember what that game was called though. It was pretty decent for co-op. Cause like I'm not that big of a fan of Pandemic. I think that game is like usually goes on too long, kind of absurdly difficult a lot of the time. And I mean, I get it. Like, if you're playing like a co-op board game, you do want to have like a certain amount of tension and uncertainty on like how the game is gonna go. But you can overdo that to the point where it's like, well, where everybody kind of figures out pretty early on in the game, like, okay, we're boned, or like we're gonna lose. And I find that like I find that kind of design to be obnoxious because you definitely want to give players the feeling like they might not win, but you don't want to be so overt that like you then sort of dispirit the the table into wanting to give up early, because then you're kind of like not properly tuned your difficulty curve in your game. Like, you want to make your players anxious, but you don't want to make them despondent. That's what I think anyway. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this after playing a certain amount of co-op board games. Because like I said, I don't know, just like most co-op board games just like leave me feeling kind of with a bad taste in my mouth. Either you win and it's like too easy of a win, or you lose and it's like too easy of a lose. Which is why I was very surprised with that World of Warcraft board game, because it was almost just perfect. It was like almost just perfect. Drawn a lot of teeth today. For this horrifying monstrosity. I will say it's been pretty fun to draw this, because I've been thinking about like the different mouths I've been drawing in this like amorphous demon monster. I've been drawing like kind of different like creature mouths, not just like human mouths, but like um like chimpanzees, like they have these particular kind of maws that are kind of terrifying in the way that they're shaped. If you like just like a good party game, like maybe you're entertaining like family, or like friends you're not, like friends who are like, they're not going to be into like, a more strategic type board game, I would recommend Skull. That's a pretty good one. That's a good party game. It's quick, it's fun, there's a lot of unpredictability. So long as you're into like bluffing type games. Which I can be. That one in particular I think is pretty good. And then one of the more interesting things I've been kind of learning about is like, most board games don't stay in circulation for forever. So there is this very interesting element to board game culture where you have certain games that are like people love them. They're really fun, but for whatever reason, they like went out of print. There's one I'm thinking about that I really enjoyed called who knows what it's called. I'm gonna get the name wrong, but let's say that it's called Corolla. And in Corolla, what you do is everybody gets 2 elephants. And these elephants have to be on tiles. And so, like, everybody draws from a bag for tiles, and the tiles have to ideally match in color. And they can only, like, you can only lay down tiles in the 2 areas where your 2 elephants are. So there is a lot of strategy to it. There's a lot of, like, chance to it as well. And you score based off of like how many different areas of the same color you can build out. But it's a game that's discontinued. Like it's out of print. So like you go on eBay and you can I don't know. You end up paying a little bit of money if you want to get your own copy of Corolla. Like there's some games out there that like go for like 150 plus. It's kind of nuts. But I mean, I guess it's the same with video games. It's like there's a game that got released on Steam not that long ago that was originally a Sega Saturn game called Radiant Silvergun. Since I was a kid, I've been wanting to play that game and never got to play it because I never had a Sega Saturn. And so, like, unless you have a Sega Saturn, it costs a couple $1,000s nowadays to play it. So, fortunately, it got released on Steam. And now I get to play it, and it's very hard, very difficult. It's an extremely difficult game because it was designed for the arcade. But those are the kind of games I've been getting into more lately because they're not long. First of all, like I don't have 3 hours in my day to like devote to like an Elden Ring type game. Like I could barely do that with Breath of the Wild. Like I wanted to like that game so much more than I really did. But it was just like the amount of time it took to like really get into the game took an incredible amount of time. The story in that game just kind of disinterested me. It honestly didn't need a story. Honestly, Breath of the Wild would have been, I think, the greatest game ever. If they just like totally trashed the story and you were just allowed to like just explore Hyrule without being like impacted by the story. But that's just me. I know a lot of people like the story and really enjoy Breath of the Wild. But basically what happened is like I played that game for about 20, 25 hours and then like I found all the towers. And after I found all the towers, I was like, I guess I'm done with this game because I don't really want to like engage with the story anymore. Like I had done the Zora dungeon or whatever. I don't know, I can't remember, the Guardians or whatever the heck they're called. And I had done the bird people, like their guardian. And as much as I enjoyed the dungeons themselves, I have to say, like, the boss fights. Well, okay, I should say the Ganondorf, or the whatever you call them, the Ganon boss fights. Not bad. But so like for the Zora situation, like before you get in the dungeon, you have to like do this like mini game where you're riding on the back of the Zora Prince or whatever. That it was so not well designed. I think like that's my opinion on it, but it was just like it was kind of janky. It was like weirdly like it's just weirdly designed. I felt like that portion of that game felt like an afterthought compared to like everything else that was going on in that game. Also, I don't know how many people here who have played it, but like I didn't find out how to cook until like probably hour 10 of that game. And I thought it was just me. Like I was like, well, maybe I'm just like goofy. And then I had a friend who was like, he had come across the same issue because his son was playing the game. And he was like trying to help his son because he was like, his son was like really getting irritated with the game because there are certain things where, like, if you want to access like cold climates, right, or like you have to get through hot climates, like you probably have to cook something, right? So you can get those like body temperature benefits or whatever. Well, like I don't know how he figured it out. Like I figured it out completely by accident. Like I was just like I got to this point where I was like, well, I have to learn how to cook. Nobody seems to have anything to say about it on the internet as far as I can find. And it's like one of the most immediate questions that gets asked for Breath of the Wild is like, how do you cook? Nintendo doesn't seem to want to explain how you do this basic thing that's important to the gameplay. And so like I just like accidentally like had figured out, okay, I can load stuff in Link's arms. Can I drop things? And then that happened. I was like, okay, I guess this is how you do it. But there was still a point where I was just like, I don't. How do you drop them in the bowl? Like it was weird. Like the whole way they did that was just weird. But maybe I'm a boomer. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like maybe that's just a me problem. I'm willing to admit this to myself that it could just be a me problem. But I will say, like, those first 7 hours of Breath of the Wild, like when you're initially just kind of getting used to the area and like the sheer scope of Hyrule, it is really cool. Like I love the hell out of exploring Hyrule in that game. I just like once you do that in if you're not grabbed by the story, like it immediately loses all its steam because you're like, okay, I guess this is everything. I mean, I get it. There's like other stuff, right? I'm sure there's like cool items you find. There's other boss fights you do, but that game was definitely one where my main pull for it was just like exploring. And honestly, like I wouldn't mind somebody making a game like that where it's like all you do is explore and like, fight random mobs and stuff. Like if it was 25 hours and that was it, I'd be fine with that. I mean, that's like not quite, but it is a little bit like my favorite Legend of Zelda game It used to be Ocarina of Time for a long time, but I think the issue is that I played Ocarina of Time like too much and like burnt out on it. But my favorite one in recent misery in recent memory, my favorite Legend of Zelda in recent memory is this is such a hipster thing I'm about to say, but it is like the what is it called? The Adventures of Link. So number 2, the one on the NES after the very first one. That game's really difficult, but it's super fun. And it's very much like it feels in a lot of ways like a precursor to Breath of the Wild, but even like a precursor to like Demon Souls and Dark Souls and those kinds of games. Like it's very open-ended. There's definitely ways that you should beat that game, but you don't have to do it in that way. And there's like minimal story to get in the way of like your shenanigans. The combat is like actually kind of really interesting for an NES game. The dungeons are very difficult, but not super long. And that's probably one of the few Zelda games where they're like, we'll just not do puzzles. It's just like you're just exploring and fighting stuff. Like in Breath of the Wild, like sometimes I really like the shrines, and then sometimes I'm like, what is this? Like I get like sometimes the shrines like the challenge is just getting to the shrine. And then at other times, you deal with a puzzle, and sometimes the puzzles are really fun, and then sometimes the puzzles are like, that's it? Like, that's all you want to do? It's just an uneven game, I guess. Not that the Adventures of Link isn't an uneven game. It definitely has its issues. Alright, that's another panel down. Spooky panel. Alright, I'm going to finish this big panel tomorrow, but I do have another page I want to work on. Oh, this is a big one. Maybe we'll start here. Start with the easy first part. Start with the easy part first. My brain is not My brain is not running at 100% today. Beef Cat says, probably a super weird question, but do you tend to ever do hand drawings on paper on these streams? Loving the painting in these streams, but just curious. Would bring me back to Pappyland. I do have some drawings that I do need to do in the future. The only reason that I haven't done it is I find that it's very difficult for me to talk and draw at the same time. Like I can do inking and talk at the same time. And maybe I'll just for those streams, maybe I'll just make a an intention for that initial part to just not talk so that I can focus and get in the flow of like, doing some designs cuz I do have like character designs I need to do basically every week until I'm done with them. I mean, it's going to be about. I was talking about this in another stream. It was going to be about 250 total illustrations. So, yeah, I mean, I can definitely do that. I'm probably, and like I said, for those streams, I'll probably not talk as much in that initial point when I'm just doing the drawing. And so that way, yeah, I can show like how I do layouts and how I kind of think about that part of the process. Beefcat says, also, Louisiana is like living in the pits of hell. We have 2 seasons, one of which is sauna summers where you walk outside and sweat immediately. The season lasts basically 11 months. See, I guess I'm just like, I don't know. Something happened in my body where I don't suffer as much throughout the year. I do suffer in the summer like everybody else does. This is gonna be. It's gonna be a sweaty summer. I can already feel it. I can already feel it. But yeah, there'll be an opportunity to go back to Pappy Land. I remember Pappy Land. That show was weird, kind of weird. I think the main thing was just like, what's his name? Uncle Pappy or whatever. His voice is just very oddly like raspy. And I think even as a kid, I was just kind of like, if I met this person in real life, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable around him, even though he's trying to teach me how to draw and become a better artist. There's just like there's a hint of meth about him. I don't know what it is. Jess says, I loved that show as a kid. Yeah, I watched a fair amount of Pappyland, though. How could I not? And that was a cool show in the sense that it had, like, in terms of, like, teaching how to draw, it was very good at breaking things down into basic shapes. Beefcat says, Pappyland taught me you can make anything out of just some random line. Hello, Pappy. I couldn't draw worth a damn. Or dang. Whatever you said. I can't quite read the rest of the thing. How do I get rid of that emoticon thing? This is not covering up text. Yeah, Pappyland. Pappyland. Even just the name Pappyland. Like, it implies so much. It's like, was Uncle Pappy... Well, that was his name, right? It was Uncle Pappy? Did he, like, create it whole cloth from his imagination? Was he commander of Pappyland? Welcome, Jathical Rabbit. Yeah, I'm just finishing up some work on Legend of Redneck right now. Maybe I need to have an Uncle Pappy stream. I'll just take characters from like Trailer Park Warlock and Legend of Redneck and be like, here's how you can draw these characters. And break them down into like their basic shapes. Let me show you how to draw Drake Baker. Even you can do it. I actually don't know if Uncle Pappy sounded like that, but that's how I remember him in my brain. It's more like the way the way he talks is more like, if you smelled his breath, there would be alcohol on it for sure. Just says, I didn't like the other drawing guy on PBS. Can't even remember his name. Is it Mark something? I'm really going in the recess of my memory. Yeah, I didn't realize that there was another person who did a drawing show either. Anyone can draw a Jake Baker Pappy stream. We might have to do that. Get my get my overalls. A jug of whiskey. As I drunkenly attempt to describe how to draw these characters. I do remember when watching Uncle Pappy, or whatever the heck it's called, Pappyland. Um, I do remember because I remember there was like other stuff that happened during that show, and I would kind of tune out, and then he would be like, "Well, it's time to draw," and I'd be like, "Oh, now I'm in." Beefcat says I'm really nailing the accent. Oh, good. Javical Rabbit says, you gotta find a live squirrel and put it in your pocket too. Get some Bob Ross there. Yeah, yeah. It's a good idea. I'll become a character that's like a combination of every like public access TV art instructor. Like some weird Zen drunkard prospector animal groundskeeper. Mark Kistler's Imagination Station is the show that Jess was talking about. I don't think I've heard of that show. Or if I did, I may have that sounds like a show I may have watched once because like my local PBS was like, "Well, try it on. Let's see what happens." And then like, it never happened again. Sounds like a good one though. Imagination Station. It's not as evocative as Pappyland though. It's like Pappyland, you're like, anything could happen in Pappyland. It sounds like a place where where you have both horrible nightmares and wonderful dreams. Oh, you know what? There's something I want to. Do I want to do that? Do I want to utilize the speed lines? Maybe. At least try. Just says, step 1, move to Alaska. Step 2, catch a squirrel. Step 3, question mark, question mark, question mark. Step 4, profit. Jess, apparently no one liked it. Oh, Mark Kistler's Imagination Station? Well, that's a shame. So wait. So Jess, you were saying you were on board for Imagination Station. Like you enjoyed it. If I remember what you were saying earlier. But yeah, I mean, you know what's funny too is like Pappyland was one of those shows that didn't come on all the time on my station, but it would show up, and it felt random when it showed up. It was just like I remember as a kid when I watched PBS, it was like Sesame Street, Big Comfy Couch. At some point, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood would show up. Um, Barney, and then like randomly, random days, Pappyland would just show up, and it was just like unannounced, just like we're doing Pappyland today. I hope you like it. Like I guess they were like we ran out of other episodes of this other show. Oh, and then also what the heck is it called? Shining Time Station or whatever, the Thomas the Tank Engine show. That was a big one. Jaffical Rabbit says, Step 4 is probably the hair. Jess says, Google also just told me Bob Ross lived in Orlando. That's right. Yeah, Bob Ross was, I think. Well, okay. I don't remember his story very well, but I do know that he lived in Alaska for a while, but I think originally he was from Florida. Something like that. Like he served in the military for a while, and he was like this might be apocryphal storytelling, but I believe he was a drill sergeant. Spent time in Alaska, things happened, and then he became the Bob Ross we all know and enjoy. Jess says, I did not enjoy Imagination Station. Surprise, it's Pappy. That's exactly how it felt. Like, Pappyland was one of those shows that I feel like a lot of adults now kind of feel about um, like YouTube kid shows like what is it called, Blippy or whatever, where it's like there's something here that feels slightly awkward that I don't know how to put my finger on it. But I mean YouTube, I don't know, YouTube kid shows is like a whole other level of like deranged that I can't wrap my head around. I was a big Barney kid for a long, long time when I was a wee child. Like, probably a little longer than I probably should have been a Barney kid, but. And then you knew that you had stayed on PBS too long because there was a point in time around 11:30 when Mr. Peabody would come on, and like I would be immediately disturbed by this man in this like um, human anatomy suit. It's still a really disturbing idea thinking about it even now because I'm just like, what were they like? Who is this made for? Although I will say, hold on, I'm gonna read. Jess says, I never liked Barney because my older cousins made fun of Barney. Fair enough. I will say though, PBS like in the afternoons was pretty freaking cool. Cause then you got Wishbone, which is a pretty great show. And Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Those were like, actually there were way more. There was like, I don't know how many people remember Square One. That show rocked. Because math is a hard. I don't know how they were able to make math entertaining, but they figured it out. I mean, it was pretty steep competition too for PBS because it's like at that time for me, this was the height of like after school animation, right? In Power Rangers, so it's like the fact that they were able to find anything on PBS that was entertaining enough to like keep kids' attention when they had the Power Rangers to like deal with. Or Batman the Animated Series, or like Animaniacs, or like or Tiny Toon Adventures. It's really kind of wild when I think back about it. Like, just the sheer amount of cartoons that were made in that time, and a lot of them, I'd have to go back and like check them out. I don't know if I would think they're the same high quality I thought when I was a kid, right? Although I kind of suspect Tiny Toon Adventures might hold up. And Animaniacs, I think, would probably hold up because it was one of those shows that was like designed to also entertain adults with a lot of like weird insider Hollywood humor. Jess says, my first day of kindergarten, I wore a Power Ranger shirt. That was so cool. That's how that works. Yeah, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was one of those things where that was a watershed moment for millennials. But yeah, I'm gonna have to start planning out the Pappy Land stream. It's so funny. And it's really interesting to think too of like how much money went into producing. Well, maybe not Power Rangers. Uh, Power Rangers is such an interesting story to me because um, it's one of those situations where like somebody had kind of figured out a way to like budget their way into making a captivating children's action show because like like half the show is just like footage that they bought from the Japanese show, right? Which as a kid, like I always knew there was something kind of like odd and off about, like all the Rita Repulsa scenes or some of the scenes where like the Putty Patrol shows up and all that stuff. And I was just like the camera, as a kid I could tell is like the camera's like kind of different, but I can't figure out why. And like the footage seems like it might be older or something, and like like Rita Repulsa's lips don't match up with her voice. But it never occurred to me that like Haim Saban just like straight up licensed and bought footage from a Japanese show and then spliced in, footage from stuff shot in Los Angeles or whatever. I'm trying to figure this line out. I'm gonna end up spending the rest of the day on that line. I'm not careful. Jess says, I noticed nothing. Seemed legit to 5-year-old me. I didn't notice anything, I think, until like. I think it was like. I think I'm gonna say the second season. Whenever they introduced the Green Ranger, it was starting to occur to me that like there was something up, but I couldn't quite put my like finger on it. I was just like, what is that? And like I talked about it with my friends. They're like, yeah, I noticed it too, but I never really thought about saying anything about it. And we're just like, well, I don't know. It's just weird. But of course, I never even put that together when I was like watching like Godzilla movies, because like I would watch a ton of like the older Godzilla movies as a kid, and like it never occurred to me for a while that like those were dubbed over. I just kind of just watched them, right? And I was like, well, I don't know, it's kind of weird and different. Like I had kind of assumed as a kid, I was like, everything's just made in Hollywood, including Godzilla movies. Pappy stream. Jess says Baby Matt had Power Ranger conspiracy theories. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the only way I could describe them. Me and my friends, we had conspiracy theories we didn't know. We just didn't understand. Something's up, but we don't know what. My brain was starting to like veer off into this territory of like, yeah, okay, we can reboot Pappyland and now like incorporate like ridiculous lore about Pappyland and its many denizens. As part of the as part of the reboot to create the Pappyverse. The 18 movie Pappyverse. The Uncle Pappy cinematic universe. Jess says, I just Googled Pappy and he looks maybe 40. He was not old. You're going to make me want to Google Pappy. Hold on. Hold on a moment. Now I'm curious. Uncle Pappy. Oh, maybe it's not Uncle Pappy. No. No, Uncle. It's not Uncle Pappy. It's Pappyland. But what's his name? Uncle Pappy? Oh no, it's Pappy drew it. Okay, I'm just like making I'm making stuff up in my head. Yeah, he's clearly a 40-year-old wearing, a wig and maybe potentially applying makeup to his beard. Although those crow's feet look pretty weird, pretty real. Maybe a very young-looking 50. There was one of the images I was looking at when I was looking at Uncle Pappy, or I'm just gonna call him Uncle Pappy. I don't know. I don't know what his actual name is. Um, Pappy drew it. Had him like surfboard writing on a pencil. I feel like there is a lot of potential here with a Pappy Land cinematic universe. Completely untapped potential. This is a very robust panel. Probably gonna be on this for a while. Oh wow. I was just looking at the time on stream. I didn't realize we're at almost at the hour 30 mark. Hmm. Kind of wanting to hit some easier things for a second before I get to the big thing I was working on. Jess says, I like the idea of Pappy busting through your wall like the Kool-Aid man. Surprise! Now it's time to teach you how to draw. But Uncle Pappy, you just destroyed the wall we were going to draw on. Well, that's okay. With your imagination, we can draw anywhere. We can draw on the floor. It just starts breaking out buckets of paint. Starts making a mess on your floor, and you're just thinking to yourself, my mom is not going to forgive me for this. And it turns out Uncle Pappy can read your mind. He's like, well, your mom's not going to mind. It'll all be cleaned up and when I'm gone anyway. Because this is all a dream. And then you wake up in a cold sweat. What happened? But then you realize you've learned how to draw, like, a dog wearing a bow tie. You didn't know how to draw a dog wearing a bow tie previously, so maybe it was more than a dream. Jess says, I like where you're going with this. Yeah, like Uncle Pappy is one of those characters where he's a hub character. And I guess that's how I think if I remember the show correctly, that's kind of how it worked. Is he was always like on the periphery or like, kind of the host, but there was like a bunch of other stuff that happened with other denizens of the realm of Pappyland. Petition for a Pappyland Sandman crossover. Where Morpheus, the King of Dreams, has to enter Pappyland and play by Uncle Pappy's rules. I'm like quietly drafting a pitch for my pitch document for myself. Uh, Here, I'm gonna do something real quick. Pappyland. Well, it would be really meta if, like, Uncle Pappy taught how to, like, draw Uncle Pappy. But then it turns out that I can't do what I was gonna do. Anyway, then it turns out Uncle Pappy is actually just the name to the entity, but not the actual entity. So you attempt to try and take pictures of him, but you can't. You can only draw him. Today, kids, I'm going to teach you how to draw a Lovecraftian horror. Now get out your pencils. I know. Well, that's like. It just says, this seems like a Halloween project suddenly. One of my favorite brands are, I guess, tropes in terms of humor is just like turning totally innocent things into like horrific, darkly undertone things. Alright, I'm going to finish off this panel. I think I'm going to call it for the stream after that. Try and not spend the rest of my like evening watching watching reruns of Uncle Pappy on YouTube. I still have to practice Tai Chi this evening. Because we're not having Tai Chi class today, so I have to do self-study. Right. Jess says, just watch Pappy. It's research for the Halloween project. I know, this is one of those things that's going to end up like seeping into the Legend of Redneck somehow. 15 hours later, I've watched like the entirety of Pappy Land. Done extensive research on the actor behind Uncle Pappy. I'm gonna have some connection issues, so I'm gonna just apologize ahead of time. Beefcat says, I didn't mean to start a fire, but I'm also not against any of this. Become Pappy. It's like a werewolf. Yeah, didn't he have like an accomplice who was like a pencil or something? Jess says, start dyeing your beard. Yeah. It's probably not that hard to do. Uh, I will take on I will take on the mantle of Pappy, like he's Doctor Who or like Batman or James Bond or something. There's been a legacy of Pappies that you didn't know about, or maybe he, maybe Pappy is a Time Lord. And he has multiple generations. Beefcat says, I felt like Pappyland was the Pee-wee of drawing. He had many friends who would visit, so you're right. Yeah, I just don't remember that show very well, but yeah, what you're saying tracks in my memory. Like I just remember it being kind of like one of those shows where just like a lot of random stuff happened and then Pappy was like, "We're going to learn how to draw." So an extensive Pappy verse. Maybe he's a Time Lord. And so the Pappy we all know is like the fifth Pappy. So there are like four other Pappies before him that we never saw. Day of the Pappy. The War Pappy. Beefcat says, For some creepy monsters, these characters have flawless teeth. I need their dentist. I'll have to deflaw their teeth a little bit when I go to color. But all the better to gnaw. Let me show you how to draw gnarled teeth for a monster. Now all you need is your pencil, piece of paper, and just a couple minutes of your time. And don't forget a healthy dose of some dark imagination. Although it is a good suggestion, I think. Add on a little bit of something. Going in and making some alterations. Should I just start reading all the texts like Pappy? Like he reads his letters? Beef Cat says no cavity in sight. Well, I'm going to make some alterations to that. Probably not for all these teeth, though. Oops. Jess says the transformation has begun. Alright, got a couple more things to do here. But you know, when you're a horrifying demon monster, it comes with perks. Okay. I still gotta do all his mouths. Now let's draw teeth. First, you gotta start with the opening of your horrifying maw. Now, your Uncle Pappy cheated a little bit and did an outline of what he was going to draw. Next thing you want to draw is the gum line. You see, if you draw gums, it's kind of horrifying. You ever look in the mirror? You make it really big, and you look at your gums and you go, oh my god. Then you can scare your brother or your sister, or your cousins too. Don't forget, if you draw a little bit of indentation in the teeth, they look like they're deformed and degraded from time immemorial. Now for myself personally, I like to draw nice pointed teeth for my monsters. Like so. Okay. Okay. Sometimes there are lines that I didn't actually intend to have as like a final line. But then I look at it, it's like, oh, that could actually work. Alright. One more monster. Something that's been kind of interesting in drawing this panel is like, it's been very easy for me to kind of space out because of the nebulousness of these creatures. Like, I don't have to be so exact on my line. And the more like, I don't know, like the more organic I am with how I draw it, the more spontaneous it looks, the more it kind of adds to the creepiness. So if you really want to draw a really creepy monster, be sure you use a lot of spontaneous lines. Maybe even get out a dry brush. Alright, that needs to be erased. So yeah, kind of the way that I'm drawing these is I'm just like fill in the basic shapes and fill in that negative space for the mouth opening. Do the gum lines. Oops. And like make the teeth a little more gnarled. There's a certain fish that I was like thinking about when I was drawing these, some of these mouths. I can't remember the name of the fish is, but like, it's not a piranha. It's like this horrifying like deep sea fish that has like these like crazy like just horrifying teeth, mandibles. Like everything wrong with the world, you know, it's just like in the deep sea, hiding out. So for some of these last sets of teeth, I even just like try to make them a little more random in terms of the, what do you want to call it, the build or whatever. Alright, I think that's gonna be it for this stream. I'm about to sign off for the day. And I will see y'all back in Pappy Land soon enough. I'm just looking over this real quick. Looks good. Hit save. All right. Y'all have a good day. Thanks for hanging out. It's been fun, and we will do this again soon. All right? Have a good one. I'm going to say bye, but I got to find the. There we go. In the stream. Bye.